Take big chances, make big moves. So I want you to think about something. If you have a lot of money or you have a lot of assets, you've accumulated a lot of wealth, then I believe that you should be risk averse. In other words, there's no point in taking big risks, in particular if it's only for small gains. For example, I know people who have made unreasonably rash decisions based on trying to get another 1% yield, where there's the possibility of losing everything they have to try and gain that extra 1%. It makes no sense. Now, on the other hand, if you are in the accumulation stage of your life, if you're starting a business, you're buying assets, you're investing, then you have to take a risk that's big enough to move the needle. For example, let's say that you have $1 million and you have an opportunity to make $10,000, right? 1%. How much of a risk would you take, or time or energy would you put into that thing? I would suggest that it's not worth the effort. That's why big funds, for example, are only interested in projects that are over 10 million or 20 million or 30 million, because it takes the same amount of time and energy to work through a $10 million project as it does a $100,000 project, which is why they're not interested in small projects. And you should think the same way. In other words, there's nothing wrong with trying to make an extra X amount of money every single month. That's fine. But if you had this imaginary $1 million, it would make no sense to risk all of that money with the possibility of gaining more. So if you had, let's say that you had an opportunity where it would take everything you had so that you could double your money. You have $1 million, there's an opportunity, you've assessed the risk, and you want to try and double that money to $2 million. I think that's not a good bet. And the reason is, with every single decision you make, there is always Murphy's Law. There's always a chance you can screw up. And as Warren Buffett said, if there is a 1% chance that something can go wrong, there is a 100% chance that it will go wrong. It's just a question of time. So if you've got this $1 million, there's nothing wrong with taking little stabs at things to see if they work. For example, I've been involved in different investments online, and I will invest $500. And then once I've invested the $500, I'll take it back out. And the reason is I'm just testing the system. Does it look like there are, it's a good, moral and ethical business? Does it have know your clients? Does it have the KYC requirements that most regulated companies now insist upon? Is it easy to get your money out? And then I might increase the investment before I start to go a bit bigger. There's nothing wrong with that. But I am very aware that before I put time and energy into something, it has to move the needle. Otherwise, why am I doing it? And I remember from my early trading days, I used to pride myself on how little money I would lose. Not make, lose. I was happy to make $1,000, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, wherever, small amounts. And then it occurred to me, what's the point? If I'm going to invest time and energy into something, and I'm confident that I can make it work, and I'm in the accumulation phase as I was then, I have to take a risk that's big enough to make the reward worthwhile, right? So it's got to be, you've got to invest that time as a payoff, because why invest your time into something where you could get a $10,000 payoff when you could invest your time into getting, say, $100,000 or $200,000 payoff? Again, working back to that imaginary $1 million. If you did something that got you a 10% return on your time, that would be a worthwhile investment, as long as you're not risking the $1 million to get the $100,000. So the point of the conversation is that there will become a point where, regardless of how much money you have, it doesn't make sense to take risk. You should be risk averse. But if you're in the accumulation stage, you have to take risks big enough to move the needle. If you like these tips, don't forget to subscribe and like and give me some feedback. Thanks for listening.